In this video, we're going to take a look at the Diplomat Aero. Let's jump straight to the end with my thoughts on this pen. This is a pen that I really enjoy using. It's so comfortable in the hand, and while it does have a smaller section that tapers down, I don't really personally have a problem because I do tend to hold it a bit farther back. These steel nibs are absolutely on par with some of the finest gold nibs. So the idea that steel is not as good as gold, this pen proves it wrong. It is worth it for the writing experience alone. It is so smooth, and while I prefer some feedback, I do enjoy sometimes having a pen that is super smooth, and this one, glassy smooth, especially when I'm on a very smooth paper. The funny thing is I do tend to, because most of my pens are black pens that I use, and because this one's orange, I tend to put my complement colors when I'm writing into this pen. And that's because then it stands out and makes some of the notes on my notes a bit easier to see. So comfortable. I can't even stress that enough. This is a pen that its click is something that people that don't like fountain pens or don't know fountain pens tend to enjoy quite a bit. It's a very positive closing, and that's one of the unusual great features of this pen. Despite the pen being great itself, it's the click that people most noticeably come to. Now that we know how I feel about the Diplomat Aero, let's see how I got to that opinion, starting with the unboxing. The Diplomat Aero came in a box like this, which was holding a box like this. They have a very cool box with this metal sleeve that goes over it. It's really unique packaging, and I do keep my packages to store the pens, so I appreciate when a company does something a bit different, like Diplomat has. With the pen out of the box, we need to get to the nib. And as long as it doesn't take 20 turns to uncap a pen, I'm generally okay. But how many turns does it take to uncap this pen? The Diplomat Aero is a pull cap. A very smooth, positive snap cap that definitely isn't going to slow you down in any kind of a meeting. The only thing is you might find yourself playing with it, and it is a positive and you hear it very well, so you might get some unwanted attention from this great pen. This gets us to the nib. This pen has a steel broad nib. The nib has some decent scroll work on it. It looks nice. It's not standout gorgeous in the fountain pen world. It's the writing experience that makes you like this nib even more. I am happy that they didn't go with a plain nib because the fluted design of this barrel and a plain nib really wouldn't have gone well together. Now, let's ink this pen up. The Diplomat Aero uses standard international cartridges or converters and holds approximately 0.7 milliliters of ink. The ink for today is Pilot's 100th Anniversary Pink. The only thing I can say about its filling mechanism is Standard International is not my favorite of filling mechanisms, but I do appreciate when a company has their own Standard International converters. I tend to find they last better than the generic ones, so I'm happy for that. As a habit, I don't normally post my pens, but some people prefer to post their pens, and some pens need to be posted in order to be used comfortably. You can post this pen. It posts very securely, no problems, fits nicely in the hand. It's not too heavy when using, doesn't stick out ridiculously far. But if you wanted to use it unposted, you could very easily there also, which I tend to use my pens unposted and just hold the cap in my other hand. If you enjoy videos like this, then be sure to hit the subscribe button. Now, the important part, the writing sample. This pen, it is hard to not gush about its look. That fluted barrel is so nice. The shape is absolutely attention grabbing in this orange, which to me was the only color to get this pen in. It definitely grabs some attention. Now, the writing with it is absolutely smooth. The nib is a firm nib to write with, which is nice when you hand it to someone to use and they're not trying to go after that flex with it. But non-pen users write with it and notice immediately how nice and easy it is to write. So while I'm not afraid to hand my pens to people to give it a shot, I've handed this pen to people a number of times. Now, this pen in the market is, to me, well above its price range. It's so much cheaper than the quality than you get. And I say cheaper, I'm talking about its price. The price of this pen is absolutely perfect because it doesn't discourage you from getting it at all. It encourages you. And then the only real problem you're going to have is because it's so affordable, you're going to want more than one, which I've been resisting. To come back to this very smooth writing experience, this is a broad nib, which they tend to be smoother anyway. But I wouldn't mind if I could just get a hold of a replacement nib specifically from Diplomat so that I could try it out in a medium or a fine. I wouldn't feel any loss for them putting it out there, even for a premium, so that I could get a hold of a fine from them because they tune them just so well. Now for something a bit more standard in comparing writing size. I use Mnemosyne Blue to do this. And here's how it compares to a Jowo Extra Fine on the left, a medium in the middle, and a 1.1 stub on the right. There's no unexpected surprises about the line weight when you're writing. A broad is a broad, and I would have to imagine that if I went and got a fine, then a fine is a fine. What I really do see is, as a broad, it is right where it should be. Not thicker than expected, and it doesn't write like a medium. So it's nice that it is as expected. But how does the writing size of this nib compare to the other nibs I've used? Looking at the writing of a Diplomat Aero with a broad nib. Here it is next to a Kaweco Sport with a broad nib, a Pelikan M1005 with a medium nib, a Pelikan M805 with a broad nib, and a Mr. Pen Italics Chaplin's a Tankard oblique italic nib, and a Noodler's Neponset with a music nib. So it isn't a review without some size comparison. Here it is capped, here it is uncapped, and here it is posted. I would call this a large pen, but definitely not an oversized pen. And if you post it, it doesn't feel like it gets back heavy for it, but that's because this pen does have a bit of weight to it in general. So with or without it being posted, it definitely satisfies the writing experience the entire time. At this point, the pen is dirty. Let's make it clean again. Be sure to check out the next pen review when we take a look at the Cross Bailey. If you want to be able to support not just my channel, but any reviewer, then when you make a purchase, be sure to tell that retailer where you heard about it. Thanks for watching.